And now I would like to give the microphone while Alessandra is reconnected to next presenters. And we have three co-presenters here: Ivan Vasenev, Alexey Yaroslavtsev, and as our heavy weapon, Professor Riccardo Valentini, who opened our forum today. Nikolai, on the one hand, showed us this optimism. He basically was boosting the optimism, but honestly, wouldn't get to full automation of agriculture because there'll be no need in us. But we're getting close to this as kind of mathematical track, especially in communication and interaction with our Italian colleagues. And we're going to give a report on the IoT system of agroecological monitoring, and it shows the principal capabilities of the system. We're going to base it on a high-quality durum wheat, well known to a lot of our speakers. It was discussed even in 2013 at a meeting in Omsk, where both parties, Kurishin was present, and then with their, let me say, permission and the permission of Riccardo, we have developed really good working relationship with Baril, and very soon we're going to get to registration with them for high quality durum wheat production. And just to be very brief, because it's, a lot of issues have been already raised. So what is our job? We have to reach the sustainable yield without any environmental pollution, which is not that easy because the conditions really are not homogeneous across the fields, and it's difficult to avoid it. So I agree with most of our speakers. It is really important to differentiate it, and we're getting close to this step by step so that we can sustainably increase production due to enhancing the average yield without losing in product quality. And these fantastic Italian companies otherwise wouldn't buy wheat where the protein level is less than 15, and they also ask us some other questions, like what is the color, for example, etc., etc., etc. And the question is that out of 50 various cultivars, which are area specific, for example, in the Volga regions and the Urals, they do not meet particular standards. So it's very difficult for us to apply the multi-year results or studies results to make sure we can get sustainably high yields. So that is why the agroecological models of decision making and technological transfer would be really helpful hand for us here. For this purpose, we need to get agroecological area-specific delineation and analyze the land use by cultivars and varieties, because obviously they have different, let's say, demands, and that's why different means should be used. And not only because of the precision farming, but also because of the optimization of their placement. And in the past 20 years, really the boundaries for the areas have been shifted towards the north, and weeds and various pathogens follow them. So we'll have to update the method for our cultivars. It is essential at this stage. Here you can see an example how it can be organized. Riccardo Valentini already explained it. We're not gonna go into more details. You would just need to minimize the climate risk, not only in a particular area, but also even in a particular piece of land in view of the steepness and of the positions and the surface conditions. That is the laboratory of agroecological monitoring for modeling and forecasting ecosystem. It was organized in 2009 in our institution with support of agricultures. Here you can see the agroclimatic devices on the fields. It was proven that can be used not only in forest at the height of 35 meters, but also in the fields, especially in the pilot conditions. And here we collected some information to detail agro-environmental models. Here it was demonstrated using the examples of barley. We have a pilot field in Timiryazev Academy. We had a field on the border between Kursk and Belgrade regions, and only due to use of this system, we boosted the productivity by 40%. 90% in Timiryazev field, a little bit higher than 40% in the farm. So what does it mean? We have to concentrate our efforts on where we have a weak link. This depends on cumulative general primary productivity from soil temperature. But of course, getting temperature, this statistic is much easier. So if we have that the boundary shifted 450 kilometers throughout serious climatic changes, then we have to take it into consideration. Nikolai Anatolievich was talking a lot about the moisture supply, and it's typical for different areas, for example, for Urals. Even in Timiryazev Academy, look at different fields, and only 1 year out of 3, when we see that the amount of precipitation is close to the multi-year trend. So how can we do the planning? Because cost effectiveness also would depend as to how justified is the use of particular technologies. And even if we had a year where the figures are close to the multi-year, but the seasonal figures varies considerably. Here we need to have an operative monitoring system that would help us to regulate these day-to-day efforts. And more farmers abandon this day-to-day treatment. And here we have to calculate technological cost in a particular field, which is very important for producers, but it becomes highly accurate only if we have good primary data. Here, if we calculate the figures using the most available monthly average data, what is the range? If we have decade by decade data, then this corridor is narrowed twofold. If you use the specifics of land, and of course we get closer to 10% typical for Europe. For this purpose, we need to understand what are the earlier trends, what are the specifics of the soil structure, etc., and as a limiting factor, how we can forecast the yield and how we can compensate the use of fertilizers. Otherwise, it would be cost effective. It's possible to use them, but the question is how much it costs. So we have to elaborate the standard error coefficients and understand in which conditions they work. We should have agroecological passports, which also would be very useful, and then would be able to recommend and get the effect at least 20-25% increase in cost effectiveness in fertilizers. So why from us goes abroad? Because this cost effectiveness level is higher there, not because our producers are stupid, because the fields are just different. It's really different, much more to the north comparison, say, with in Italy, and the climate is much more continental. So it's more difficult for us, but it's still possible to handle it. And we already talked a lot about Industry 4.0. And Ricardo overlapped it with agriculture, which would be more advanced, 5.0. But it should be reiteration, say 4.1, 4.2, 4.27, with getting into more details by regions, by crops, not just have a unified decision support system, but a framework system which we can digitalize. Then I think it will be more productive. Crop talker, we discussed it today. Just wanted to say that there is no limit to affection. We started working with them 2 years ago, and we do believe that for the next 5 to 7 years, we have to go state by state working on them so that they will be able to demonstrate not only temperatures and humidity and not the hourly growth of sprouts and the spectrum characteristics, so that we would be able to be confident in our conclusions about the shortage of elements, about diseases. This is still the future. But with such experiments, we can work with the so-called training samples using drones or even maybe satellite remote sensing data that can be used more efficiently. Regarding data transfer, it was already discussed. But according with the temperature and humidity data, we also need to have some other data like for nitrogens, for the salinity, for soil cracking. Of course, this is very objective. It is necessary. And here, I believe the colleagues from these specific agrophysical institutions, research institutes, can be a help for us. And our job is try to transform the big data monitoring and reach the level when every agronomist in every farm would be able to understand it. So we have to do it with maximum speed. The system should be automated, but still it should be interactive. And it always should be an option, should be a choice, which way the model should go, how to make it much more efficient. So I guess I'd like to end with this picture that we already see for the second time. This is from the fields in our academy, and it's wonderful that crop talkers were first tested in the fields of the Timiryazev Academy, and I do hope that they can be refined actively for the next 5 years under this framework of the technologies of the future, which our director of our university already described. Thank you so much for your attention. Ivan Ivановich, thank you so much for that brilliant presentation. I mean, it's obvious there's such a huge amount of information, the accumulated experience is practically important to relate it within such limited time. But that is the point for development, for our further collaboration.
Ivan Ivanovich, can you tell us, you mentioned the region, the Kursk region as the practical application. Any pilot applications of the technologies presented? Have they been done in any regions? And if yes, what are the areas? That is Saratov, Samara, Orenburg regions where we collaborate with our regional universities. We have included that into the approbation project, and together with them, the precise forecast is about 1,000%, and to cover the full territory, we would require 2 to 3 years. Luckily, Crohn is supporting us. We, Amazon and Syngenta, were helping us last year, and we expect that it won't be pilot plots, but fields of 60 to 100 hectares. You've been speaking about durum wheat, and probably the listeners would be interested to say that we were speaking about the Altai Krai, the Orenburg region. What other regions could be sources for Barilla company, the distinguished company who can supply durum? When we did the screening together with the Orenburg region, we also selected Samara and Saratov regions, taking into account the distance. And in Chelyabinsk, MAGFA is big, and the market is covered by this company. So good quality gluten and protein, and the color is the most hard to be so that Russia could cover the niche in if we speak about 1 million or 2 million tons per year. it's paramount, as in this forum we are speaking about improving efficiency with the Russian and more marginal markets with Russian farmers, so that they can get bigger profits.